Good morning. Welcome to Plugged In. More of Daniel's story in Daniel chapter 6 right after this. Hey, we're glad that you're back with us. We are slowly creeping through the story of Daniel in Daniel chapter 6. In just a few moments, we will put a verse up on the screen for you and then give you a thought for the day on that topic. But I want to do a little plug if I can. I don't do this all the time, obviously. It's really got to hit me personally for me to make a big to-do about it. And I've been talking about it at church. I've been encouraging our people to do it, to buy this or at least download it some way. It was introduced to me by a lady in our church, very strong Christian woman who has her way of challenging even me in my walk, and I really appreciate that. But she told me about this book. It's not very big. You can see right here, it's not a large bound book. It's a very simple read. In fact, this is my second time through it. It's written by Eric Metaxas, and it's entitled Letter to the American Church. That right there. Very simple read. It's a simple read in that it is, well, practical. Very informative. But I will share with you what it says here on the top by one person, Erwin Lutzer. He says this book is a bucket of cold water thrown into the face of a sleeping church. I don't want to give you the whole rundown of it, but basically what Metaxas does is he takes what was happening in Germany in the 30s and 40s and how the church stayed quiet, and then they found out about the Holocaust. And it wouldn't have happened if the church would have spoke up then. But we find ourselves in America dealing with some things because we've not spoke up. And so he takes us through not only certain chapters of what it is that's keeping us from speaking up, but the connection between how it happened there in the 30s and 40s in Germany and the connection to the 21st century in the American church. And so I would really, really, really encourage of you to go. I bought mine at Mardell's. It's like $13.50. You could probably download it, get it on some other tech device. You might encourage church leaders to read it. It is definitely something that stirs the heart. So I just wanted to do that little plug for you today. Okay, I'm just going to read a passage. Before I read it, let me set it up, and then I'm going to give you a thought to think about. So, okay, the decree has been made that no one is to pray to anyone or to any deity. Daniel was found out doing it. The king, we talked about last week, is distressed about this. And so, but he has to follow through. He made a decree. Anyone caught doing this has got to be thrown in the lion's den. So Daniel is thrown into the lion's den. And then Pete's going to put up verse 18 here for us. Here we go. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him. here's these words, and he could not sleep. What was it that was keeping Darius awake? Why was it he couldn't eat or sleep? I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I have some of those sleepless nights, I might go to the pantry or the fridge to look for a midnight snack. Why was it that if any sort of entertainment had been brought to him, it wouldn't have been able to distract his thoughts? Simply put, King Darius had a guilty conscience. But the question is, why was he guilt-ridden? You see, Darius had agreed to make a decree stating that no one could pray to any other deity or to any person except himself. But when the decree was made, news reached his chambers that Daniel, one of his trusted officials, one of his trusted partners in running the country, was not obeying the decree, and that Daniel continued to pray to his God. And when Darius heard this, it distressed him, and he was determined to try to save or rescue Daniel. Now, I can think of at least 4 reasons as to why Darius was dealing with a guilty conscience. First, he had compromised. That is, he had allowed his staff to dictate the direction of the country. Number 2, he had caved to outside pressure. In other words, he wanted to keep his supporters happy. Number 3, he had become more focused on his popularity than on being fair to others. And here's the 4th reason. In a moment when he was tested about his loyalty to someone that he was ready to move up in the ranks, he turned on him. Someone once said, "It is better to sleep on what you plan to do than to be kept awake by what you've done." Darius will eventually be bold enough to exclaim that Daniel's God is the one to be feared. We're going to talk about that next week. For now, I want to leave you with a couple of things to possibly apply to your life. The first is this. Maybe you are dealing with a guilty conscience because of some past sin that you've not fully let go of. Or there's a current sin in your life. You know, rather than blaming others for the shortcoming, if you remember in the Garden of Eden, the woman blamed the serpent and Adam blamed the woman. Rather than blaming others for the shortcoming or denying the wrong that you have committed or making any other excuses, you and I can gain a clearer conscience by taking responsibility for the actions, seeking forgiveness, and making restitution. Second, and this is a big one, maybe your guilty conscience is not due to something you have done, but rather it is over something you have not done. Sin is not just an action which we commit. Sin is also an action we omit. In other words, James chapter 4, verse 17, to he who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, sins. Something to think about this week. Hope you have a wonderful week. It's a full week of school for our kids. And a reminder, I do know this for sure, this Friday night's the first varsity football game of the season. Hope to see you out there to support the team and or any other extracurricular activity the kids might be involved in this week. Thank you again for joining us each week. We look forward to being in Daniel chapter 6 again next week, and we'll see you for Plugged In next Monday.